Good morning, my friends. How are you? Welcome to another edition of Behind the Mic with me, Mike Avery, here in the Outdoor Magazine radio studio. Doing our Hump Day edition of our live streams. Mad Jack, good morning, buddy. How are you? Thanks for joining me over on YouTube. Cliff, always a pleasure. Wouldn't be a live stream, either a Wednesday night live or a Behind the Mic segment, without you with us. Same thing with you, Mike. I posted your video of the loon. Very cool. I am going to post later video of beavers on the pond behind the house. They showed up last week. We have a pair of beavers now, and I live in the city. I mean, not a big city, a town, and I live inside the city limits. But we have two beavers now on the pond that have showed up. Now, that's really cool, right? Until they start messing around with water levels and cutting down trees. So we'll see how long those beavers have before they are unwelcome. Craig, good morning. How are you? I look forward to seeing you in just a couple of days. Same thing with you, Uncle Johnny. Yeah, here's what I was thinking, Johnny. I actually got invited to play golf tomorrow at noon, but I'm not going to be up there at that time. But I wondered if maybe tomorrow evening we couldn't sneak out for a round there at the country club. I know they have leagues, but we could get out after the leagues. Rick is not going to make it in time, but maybe you and I could play around. Just thinking out loud, although it's supposed to be stupid hot tomorrow. And maybe some rain Friday morning, but we'll make it work. Tim, good morning, buddy. How are you? Yeah, beavers. And it's weird because I never would have thought we'd have beavers on the pond there. When we first moved in, the lady we bought it from said, "Oh, you have otters on the pond." I'm like, there's no otters back there. And I was right. There's no otters back there. They were muskrats. But we've lived in that house for 10 years now, and I've never thought of it as a home for beavers. It just didn't make sense. The only thing I can think of is maybe they were living over across the road and they're doing some building there, and I knew there were beavers over there. Maybe it kind of forced them over to us. But as cool as it is to have beavers behind the house on the pond, I don't want beavers on the pond behind the house. They're going to cause too many problems. Austin, salmon fishing, have fun, excellent. Randy, good morning. Where'd you go, Randy? How are you? Dave, always a pleasure. Tim says seeing lots of deer this week, even some bucks. Good morning, Tim. How are you? John, always a pleasure. No fawns. So where are your fawns, Tim? I think you asked me that question earlier, and I didn't respond, and I apologize. I don't know. I'm seeing plenty of fawns. I don't know where your fawns are. Ruben, how are things in Colorado? My name is Mike Avery. This is Behind the Mic. I'm here, mics, plural. Avery, why do you have two mics? Social media mic, this one. My official broadcast microphone, this one. A few minutes after the about 9:05, I will switch from this. Well, I will keep live streaming on this microphone, but we'll crack this one open, and we will do the radio show, and you are welcome to stick around for that. Johnny Bowler, the Bear Whisperer. Johnny donated a brook trout fishing trip to our bank beavers. Brook trout fishing trip to our golf outing that's coming up Friday in West Branch. Scott Hand, I am not fishing the Angler Quest tourney, but I will be emceeing the event. I'm sure you're fishing it as well as golfing. Isn't retirement great, Scott Hand? You can golf in my outing on Friday, and you can fish the Angler Quest Owners Tourney on Saturday. It's like, how did you ever have time to work? Good morning, Jim. How are you? Okay, this is a term I've never heard before, bank beavers. I've never heard of this before, Tim. What are bank beavers? I mean, the name might be self-explanatory, but I've never heard that term before. They won't mess up my yard because they won't be around there long enough. Good morning, Michelle. How are you? Look forward to seeing you Friday. Captain JT Fish Junkie Charters, thank you for donating the trip. Story about a Michigan hunter encounter with Sasquatch. Needs an audio book done. We should talk soon. We should, Bill Hoffman, the most interesting man in Michigan. Wow, they burrow. Instead of, okay, so you're saying, Tim Benz, they burrow in the bank instead of building a house? Do they dam the flow of water and try to make, a bigger pond? And when I saw them, and actually I watched them last night for a little bit, they were just chewing on vegetation. Do they not eat trees? Judy, good morning. Patrick, how are you? Johnny, I got a call, voicemail from... I think, Johnny, that was Steve Wyndham. Certificate. Yeah, but we need. So, Johnny, tell me some details. Shoot me a text, Johnny. Give me some details. When is it for? For how many? Where is it for? And that good stuff, and we'll make up a certificate. Jerry, I will see you Friday. Golfing with us on Friday. Uncle Johnny, Jerry, this guy right here. Remember when we were golfing Chestnut last fall and a guy and his wife came through and played through? This is Jerry right here. He's golfing. He and his wife are golfing in the outing on Friday. Excellent, Ross. Ross donated a bear hunt in White River, Ontario for the 2026 season. And then Scott Keatsman piled on, and that's a good term, gave us a bear shoulder mount to auction off as well. So these are all things that are happening Friday at the golf outing in West Branch. And actually, believe it or not, you can still sign up. mucc.org/golf. Ed, good morning. How are you? Okay, Johnny. They won't build a den. They just live under the bank of the pond. Will they eat trees or just chew vegetation, Tim? If they're just going to burrow out there and they're not going to cut down trees, I don't have a problem with them. I've never heard of a bank beaver before. David, good morning. How are you? Tim Binns, the keeper of all knowledge. Okay, let's talk about a couple of other things here. Yes, we have two beavers now that have moved in on the pond behind the house. I saw them both last night. In fact, I walked right up to within probably 30 yards of one of them shooting video that I will post later. I think is very cool, but I don't want the damage that I'm afraid that they will cause. Although Tim Binns is telling me that they still eat trees. So that's my concern. If they start chewing down all the trees, we don't need that. That alone will be enough reason for them to go away. And I do have approval from the person who owns that pond, and it's not me. Although I would make somebody mad. No flow, so no dam. I did, Ross. I did. And I sent it to Steve. I think that's fine. I think that'll be fine, Ross. And I'm sorry you're not going to be with us Friday morning, Ross, but I completely understand. Good luck. Okay, another topic I want to talk about that I will talk about in depth here on the radio show coming up. New state record catfish. How big was that thing? 53 pounds? Michigan flathead catfish weighs in at above the 64-pound mark. Well, that's what I'm thinking, Tim. I'm not going to take them out of there. But to keep everybody happy in the area, I would hire a guy to come in and live trap him, get him out of there. So he didn't kill him, but live trap him and get him out of there. But it's not going to make a certain somebody happy. But it's not going to be happy when they start cutting down all the trees either. But they're just doing what beavers do, right? I have no ill will toward beavers. I think they're very cool critters. And I think it's cool to have them back there. I just don't want the damage that they're more than likely to cause. Beavers. Who would have thought we'd had beavers right there in town? Good morning, Tommy. How are you? Okay, so I made a couple of posts about this. One of them I deleted because it turned too negative. About the bow fisherman who shot a new state record flathead catfish. And my question, and I think it's a legitimate question, and it was not meant to be demeaning to bow fishing at all, because bow fishing is a riot. And I said, should there be separate categories for fish that are taken with bow fishing as opposed to fish that are taken with hook and line? I just posed the question. I think it's an interesting question. 64 pounds and 64.46, 64.46. The interesting thing about that, Ross Elliott, Lee, good morning, is who's the guy? Lloyd Tanner is the guy who had the previous Michigan State catfish record. And Lloyd is a hardcore catfisherman. He's like the catfish guru. He's like the catfish whisperer. I've had him on a show. It was his record that was broken by the bow fishermen. Interestingly enough, last weekend, Lloyd went out and caught another catfish that was bigger than the previous state record that he caught. So we got some big cats here. Scott, my thoughts on this over-the-counter fall turkey license. Pretty cool. I think it's pretty cool, too. I think it's very cool. That's one of the topics of discussion this week. You no longer have to apply for a fall turkey tag. You just buy it over the counter, as it should have been all along. So I think it's great. 11 pounds over the past state record. Good morning, Brian. Jerry had a beaver in Thread Creek in Flint last year. There, is there a different category for spearfishing? I'm not sure there is a category for spearfishing. Hook and line, I thought that was a category. No, I don't believe it is. I mean, the state record distinction is not specific as to how the fish was taken. Doesn't matter how it's, whether it's spearfishing or whether it's bow fishing or it's hook and line. Doesn't matter. Morning, Gene. How are you? Good morning, Joe. Derek, some people like the meat much better than venison. Speaking of that, I had a couple of real good fishing trips last week on Saginaw Bay on the Angler Quest, the new Angler Quest. It's a beautiful, beautiful rig. I can't say enough about that. But the group that we had out last Friday, and they were great guys. But when they went out with us last week, and this was a benefit for the Arc of Midland, the high bidder in a charity auction. We caught a catfish last year, and I wanted to just throw the stinking thing back because I don't like handling them. I don't like the mess they make. I'm not being prejudiced against catfish or catfishermen, but if I'm targeting walleye, I don't want to catch catfish. Plus, they're tough on your gear because they fight so hard. So last year we got a catfish. They kept it. My first mate, Doug Cook, God bless him, filleted it out for him because I sure didn't want to. And they made catfish sandwiches, and they loved them. So this year they said, look we want to catch some catfish. I'm like, okay, well, we'll probably catch a catfish. And we did. And we actually caught 4 catfish. We kept 3 of them. And I thought, look I don't mean to be a stick in the mud. I'm actually going to fillet one of these out too. And I can tell you right now, that is the last catfish that I will ever fillet. I will never do that again. I don't care how much somebody pays for the charity charter. I'm not filleting another catfish. Now, Doug Cook, my good friend, neighbor, and first mate that day, who had done it last year, actually figure out how to do it, and he did a really nice job, and he got 2 nice fillets out of that fish. Those fish. So anyway, that's my catfish story. I think I'm probably pretty much done fishing on the bay for the year. It was a very short season for me, but it was a very good season because this week has been tied up getting ready for the golf outing, which is Friday, and then I start getting ready for a bear hunting trip in Ontario. I may sneak out someday next week, but that season is starting to wind down. Apex is getting ready for their dealer show. Good luck to you. Jerry, good morning. How are things in Algonac? Hunter Joe says springtime turkey tag should be over the counter as well. He said it's ridiculous that some areas can get the prime ZZ hunt, other areas can't. I can't disagree with you, Hunter Joe. I mean, I get ZZ every year. It's a 6-week Southern Michigan private land tag. How do you not, if you're eligible, just get the ZZ tag? I do. TJ, good morning. Jim, good morning. Dave could make something good from catfish. I'm going to text him right now. How about a catfish recipe this week? So who's doing the show today, guys?
We're splitting it. Both.
It's a twofer.
Yep, it's a tag team event.
I get 2 broadcast legends. Well, one's a legend. One is an aspiring legend.
I'm trying.
Charlie Rood, broadcast legend. Jonathan Dent, guaranteed to be legend once he gets a few more beers. A few more years under his belt. Once he gets a few more beers under his belt, he'll be a legend in his own mind. Make ZZ statewide. Private land only. I know. ZZ is Southern Michigan, private land only, but it's 6 weeks. Oh, your comment, Derek, was about beaver backstraps versus venison backstraps. Thank you. Thank you, Derek, for clarifying that. Okay. Craig says, how does it make sense to have over-the-counter turkey tags with the population dropping? That's a very good question, Craig. There is no doubt that turkey numbers are dropping across the state. Although, when I had the wildlife biologist on last week, and I forget his name, but he's their turkey guy, I asked him that question. I said, turkey numbers are dropping. Is that a concern? And he said, well, from their perspective, not really, because when you look at the success rate of Michigan turkey hunters, it's still among tops in the nation. So they're not too concerned about it. Better on trapping raccoons, and the turkey population will explode. You're not the first guy to say that, TJ. I've heard that from a lot of people. Okay. No, you're right. Not many. I keep a fall turkey tag in my pocket just so if I'm out bow hunting and a bird walks by, I can take it. But I don't target birds in the fall. I think you're right, John. I think that's the way a lot of people hunt birds in the fall. Okay, what else is on the list here? What do you think of the legislation from the downstate politician who wants to ban bear baiting in Michigan on federal lands? Is it just a move from an ignorant politician who thinks he's doing something good, or is it more than that? Is it an obvious anti-hunting effort from somebody who is trying to pass it off as a person just doing something good for the resource? We'll talk about that in the show. Speaking of the show, I hear you, Scott. On this week's radio show, my first guest is Chad Stewart of the DNR. He is their big game specialist. We'll talk with him about the upcoming season. Yes, TJ, a certain politician is. Then in hour number 2, Chris Craner talks about summertime coyote hunting. Then Amy Trotter of MUCC reacts to the I got to get my clock going here. 10. I'm not even ready.
7, 6, 5,
12.
3, 2, 1.
Okay, now I'm ready. Okay. Amy Trotter reacts to that goofy politician who wants to ban bear baiting. And then in hour number 3, we're headed to Lake Michigan to fish salmon with Captain Paul Schlafly of Riverside Charters and, of course, wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Miner. So that's the show. I'll be back tonight. I really thought I would have the prototype Rapid River knife in my hands this morning. I talked to Chris. He shipped it out, and it was sent back to him because it was signature required, and I didn't sign for it, and I never had a delivery. So I don't know. I'll have it for the golf outing Friday, I hope. We'll see. All right, my friends, have a good day. I'll see you tonight, 7 o'clock, for another edition of Wednesday Night Live. Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to another edition of the Outdoor Magazine radio show right here on the Outdoor Magazine radio network on more than 30 radio stations across our great state of Michigan. And so glad to have you along with us as we continue this weekly celebration of the outdoor lifestyle right here in the great state of Michigan. We talk about hunting and fishing and shooting and trapping and wildlife issues and conservation issues and, of course, even some wild game cooking. I'm here every week. We do this for 3 hours on stations across the state. I'd also have a podcast version of this radio show that is also available. So I would encourage you to check out whatever method of consumption of this content works best for you. But, of course, I always promote the radio show. So what's going on? I have had a couple of very good walleye fishing trips on Saginaw Bay since we last talked. It's a short season for me because I got the Angler Quest late, but I'm trying to make the most of it because actually my season is starting to wind down now. This last week I didn't fish because I was getting ready for the golf outing. And then I've got an Ontario bear hunt coming up here very soon, so I'm starting to think that direction. But I will try to sneak out in the bay 1 or 2 more times. And the fishery is holding up quite well. My skinny water, my beloved skinny water, has not been producing. Although there are fish in there, there are a lot of weeds. If I would be patient enough or tough enough just to stay in there and tough it out, meaning run about 4 rods and just sit at the back of the Angler Quest and just keep cycling rods to keep the weeds off, we could catch fish. But there is a spot offshore that has some structure that I can find 12 feet of water. 12 is I like 12 feet. I like 12 better than I like 20 feet. And I'll tell you what the program has been. On one side of the Angler Quest, and I'm running 10 rods, the outside rod 60, and these are number 7 flicker minnows. The outside rod 60, and then 50, and then 40, and then 30 closest to the boat. On the other side of the boat, I've had 2 at 55 and 2 at 45. Now, you got to space those out a little bit more, and you got to make sure the baits are running right, or you're looking for a tangled mess. On the back corners of the Angler Quest, spoons with number 30 jet divers, about 25 feet back, and those are just at the corners. And those have been pretty good. And I'm trying to think if we've taken anything other than a walleye on that setup, and I don't think so. If you're looking just for walleye, that's the way to go. And they've also taken some bigger fish, too. This last trip, it was a charity for the Arc of Midland, and I do charity charters. The Arc of Midland. And the high bidder, Speed, and his family fished with us last year. Great guys. They love to fish. I love having them on the boat. Last year when they were with us, we caught a catfish. Now, normally on my trips, if we catch a catfish, I do my best to lose it in the net and not even bring it in the boat. Now, they do fight hard. They're hard on your gear. They're hard on your cheap little flicker minnow baits. But I don't like getting them in the boat. They're slimy, and I just, listen. There's nothing against catfish or catfishermen, but when I'm targeting walleye, I want to catch walleye. I don't want to catch catfish. Last year we catch a catfish, and the guys say, "Well, can we keep it?" I'm like, "If you want to, we can keep it." I never ever fish with the first mate except on this ARC trip because my buddy, my neighbor, my friend Doug Cook is involved with the ARC of Midland. And he said, "I'll go along and help you out." I'm like, "Sure, let's do it." So last year we keep a catfish and like, I don't want to clean it. So Doug says, "I'll clean it." Doug cleans it up and got some nice fillets out of it. Well, the guy, I think we had 2 of them last year that Doug cleaned up. So the guys used them in catfish sandwiches and they loved them. So this year, as we leave the dock, they say, "Can we catch some catfish again?" I'm like, "Well, not if I can help it." But we did, and we caught some big catfish, and we kept them. And listen, not trying to be a stick in the mud, I said, "Okay, I will clean one of these catfish." Can I just say right now, publicly on the record, I will never clean a catfish again. Don't ask me to clean a catfish. Don't ask me to fillet a catfish out. I thought I was going to throw up. Again, nothing against catfish or catfish anglers. I just didn't know how to do it. Doug gets his knife out there, zoop, 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 and gets beautiful fillets off this thing. I had no idea. You can't fillet them like a walleye. But it was kind of slimy, and the meat was kind of yellow. And again, I'm not. Catfish are a wonderful target if that's what you're targeting. Speaking of catfish, did you hear about the new state record catfish taken in Monroe County by a bow fisherman? I think bow fishing is wonderful. I have bow fished before. It is an absolute riot. But on my Facebook page, I posed the question of should there be separate categories for fish that are taken, say, by spear fishermen, by bow fishermen, and by hook and line fishermen, because right now there's not. If you legally take a fish, say, for example, this new state record catfish, it doesn't make the distinction how it was caught. It was just, okay, was it legal? And this fish was certainly legal. Then it becomes a new state record. So I just asked the question, should there be different categories for different methods of take? And I don't have a dog in this fight, and I really don't care. I just think it's a valid question. And I actually had to delete the first version of that post because the comments went negative. You gotta love anti-social media, right? It's so easy to get negative when you're sitting there on your phone or in front of a keyboard, things you would never say to a person to their face. Like the guy who took that state record catfish, bow fishing, congratulations. You have a state record fish. That is something to be proud of. He took it legally, bow fishing. Nothing wrong with that. But people came out against bow fishing. Can we not do this anymore? Have we not reached the point in our world today where we got to quit complaining about other methods of hunting and fishing and quit criticizing and fighting with fellow hunters or anglers? I had one guy, and I made this comment online, and I had one guy post and say, "Well, I know, Avery, you're like, everything's kumbaya. We've got to all get along." No, we don't have to all get along, but do we all have to fight as well? Lord knows we have people out there in the wings who are against us. What about the crazy politician here in Michigan, in southern Michigan, who drafted this legislation that would ban baiting for bears on public lands? What is it? Now, is that an innocent attempt by a politician who is ignorant to the facts, who thinks he is doing something positive, or is it something more nefarious, and is it an absolute outright anti-hunting effort? I don't know the answer to that. Coming up later in the show, Amy Trotter of MUCC will join me to talk more about this. But with that in mind, right, when you have politicians in Michigan proposing legislation to ban baiting for bear hunting, why in the world would we, as hunters and anglers, fight among ourselves? I just don't get it. And the time, in my opinion, is gone for this. We don't have time for this. It is not the right time for this. If you want to, let me rephrase this. If you want to, in your closed circle with face-to-face conversations with fellow hunters and anglers, if you want to hash this out, go ahead. We don't all have to agree on how to do things. I'm just saying we should not be publicly chastising and criticizing and fighting with fellow hunters and anglers. Now's not the time. And social media is a method of doing that publicly. So knock it off. What else is going on? I got so many things to talk about this week. How about if I just say, coming up on this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show after the break, DNR wildlife biologist Chad Stewart joins me to talk about the upcoming deer season. Are there any changes in regulations? When are we going to get baiting back for whitetails in Michigan? I'll tell you right now, it ain't going to happen unless the politicians get involved and make it happen. In hour number 2, Chris Craner on summertime coyote hunting. That's something that you don't hear a lot about, but there's quite a few people out there doing it. Then, as I said, Amy Trotter of MUCC joins me with her reaction to the proposed legislation to ban baiting for bears. And I'll ask her, is this just an ignorant politician trying to do something right, or is it a blatant anti-hunting act? And then in hour number 3, Captain Paul Schlafly of Riverside Charters in Manistee. We're headed to Lake Michigan. It's that time of year. We're talking to Paul about fishing for kings and more. And then wild game chef Dixie Dave Miner joins us with another recipe. I'm going to see if he can't do a catfish recipe for us. Or maybe a beaver recipe. We got beavers on the pond behind the house now. I'll talk more about that, too. There's so much to talk about this week, and I've only got 3 hours to do it. Hey, Ken. Thank you. I see your comment here. Thank you for that. Remind me that I got an email from you that I have not responded to yet. It's in my list it's on my to-do list, Ken, but my to-do list has been pretty swamped this week. I will get to it. I promise you that. All right, my friends, have a great day. I will be back tonight at 7 o'clock for another edition of Wednesday Night Live. In the meantime, have a great day. And if you want to golf with us Friday, believe it or not, I think you can still sign up. mucc.org/golf. See you tonight, my friends, 7 o'clock for another edition of Wednesday Night Live.